What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Arkansas just wrapped up the 8-week summer training cycle. We've got some testing numbers that we want to discuss that we were able to get, maybe compare how those were last year, maybe how they translate, like a 22-mile-per-hour catapult speed. What does that translate to in a 40-yard dash? We'll discuss all that. We're going to bring Danny West on to talk a little football also, and, of course, recruiting, your questions as well. All that and more on today's episode of Hawg Sports Live. Look at all these ways to watch and listen to the show. Hawg Sports is on Facebook. It's on YouTube. It's on X. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, take a moment and do so real quick. Set it to where you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Join 109,000 other Razorback fans on Facebook that subscribe to our page, and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Certainly appreciate that. Take a moment, give us a like or a thumbs up. Comment on the video. All that stuff helps the algorithm. If you like the show, let other people know about it. Love to have that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts as well. If you're interested in advertising with Hawg Sports, you're going to hit up Ty, T-Y-E, at ESPN Arkansas. T-Y-E, ESPN Arkansas at gmail.com. T-Y-E, ESPN Arkansas at gmail.com. We actually have a couple more spots. Still working on some deals, but a couple of spots still available if you want to advertise. As I mentioned before, we're going away from the interspersed YouTube ads, and we'll just have in-show sponsorships from now on. So certainly appreciate the support of those who have jumped on already, and we'll get started with all that stuff pretty soon. And no more no more interspersed ads. Okay. Get your questions in if you got questions. So fall camp schedule has not been officially released yet, but what I do know is we will start Thursday, which is report day. We'll have interviews with Sam Pittman and Ben Souders, who I'm going to talk about some of the things that Ben Souders has accomplished this offseason working with the team. And, yeah, players will report, and then I assume we'll go practice Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, take Wednesday off, come back Thursday in full pads, go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and then practice every weekday, Saturday, and then off Sunday, 24 practices over the 29-day span leading up to the first game against Alabama A&M. That's how I assume it will go based on past experience. Will they practice in the morning or in the afternoon? I'm assuming they'll mix it up, probably early on Saturdays, like days they scrimmage and stuff like that. Probably midday. I don't know exactly. 2 springs ago, I should say, Sam Pittman really liked the early practices that they did in fall camp, and he wanted to incorporate it in spring football, which was great, to be honest. Early practices, I loved it. But last year, they went back to the afternoon practices. They did everything like scheduling classes, did all that stuff so they could get players there for morning practices. They scrapped it in the spring, then went back to afternoon. So I assume we're going to see kind of a mixed bag of what time practices are. Obviously, especially leading up to the 18th, which is the first day of classes. So when classes start, they're going to go back to the afternoon practices. But these, 3 weeks or so of practices for fall camp could be all over the place. So that's how I assume that they'll do it based on past experience. We could have a little bit of a change in terms of when press conferences are moving forward, maybe a little earlier in the day instead of after practices. I think they'll give us probably 20, maybe 30 minutes of practice viewing time, especially early on, probably a little bit more and maybe gradually less, all the way up till the 18th, when I assume, like last year, that they'll shut down practices again, which I wish they would open them. I would love that. If nobody else is opening practices, then why would you? I totally understand that. And Arkansas has been generally more open as far as media access than other programs in the conference. So that's how I think it'll go. Not sure on the time. And then like interview schedule. So we'll get like a position coach, say Morgan Turner, and he'll bring in, a couple of tight ends. So that's kind of how the structure would be through fall camp. Get a couple of tight ends, get the tight ends coach. This will be the only time that we would speak to assistant coaches throughout the entire year, basically. So it's a good opportunity to get a little bit of intel from those guys. Of course, get Travis Williams, Bobby Petrino, Scott Fountain. So summer testing. Again, we're going to have Danny West coming in here shortly. Summer testing just wrapped up. I don't know that they went like full on things like bench press, for example. Like there's some bench press numbers that are down. Sometimes they tend just to avoid any risk of injury. Say, okay, you're good. Like let's just wrap it up. Like you had a guy who benched 405 last year, and this year he benches 365. It's not that he's not as strong. It's just that I think they take some of it off of them. A lot of guys like bench. You had a good number of guys benching 600 last year. Brooks Edmondson still did 625 to lead the team. That's a lot of weight. What did Brooks do last year? 635. So I assume Brooks is probably stronger than he was last year, but his squat was down 10 pounds. Like Larry Worth, same deal. Bench press down, squat down 10 pounds. So you never know how exactly they do that. But other things like vertical jump and broad jump, catapult speed, I think are very interesting. A guy that I've said before that I think everybody is going to know a few weeks into the season, and Bobby Petrino even compared him to Nile Davis at the deal that the Buzz had, 103.7, the Buzz had on, I think, Thursday or Friday, compared him to Nile Davis. But Mike Washington, 335 bench. I bet he can do more. 530 squats, a good number for running back. 38.5-inch verticals, very solid. 10-11 broad jump. Very solid. Like if you're approaching 11 feet in the broad jump, that's really good. And a 22.3 miles per hour speed. So for those who don't understand like how the catapult system works, in a lot of ways, as far as these programs go, it hasn't really done it like in the NFL Combine. They still do 40 times and stuff like that. But as far as like this, you know, you have this vest. It almost looks like a brassiere. It does. You have this vest, and the catapult system is a satellite that tells your speed, basically. It measures your speed on Earth. 22 miles an hour is fast. To put that in perspective, there were 8 players last year who did at least 22 miles an hour. Andrew Armstrong, believe, ran the slowest 40 time out of all of them at a 4.50 at Arkansas Pro Day, a 4.51 at the NFL Combine. Just to put it in perspective, I can give you a couple other numbers on that, just to give you an idea. It doesn't necessarily mean like you're the fastest guy on the team in terms of 40-yard dash. It doesn't tell you how long you sustain 22 miles an hour. It doesn't tell you how quickly you got up to 22 miles an hour. You know, some guys may get up to 22 quicker. Some guys may get it to the end of their run, you know. Let's see. Where is what I'm looking for? My comparison story. Okay, here it is. All right, so last year, Danico Slaughter ran 22.9 miles an hour. That was the fastest on the team. He ran a 40-yard dash in 4.39 seconds at Arkansas Pro Day. Tyrone Broden ran 22.6 and ran a 4.37 at Pro Day. Marquise Robinson did 22.5 and ran a 4.45. Jordan Anthony did a 22.3. Jordan Anthony, one of the fastest humans to ever live, did a 22.3 miles an hour speed. And later ran a 9.75 100-meter dash, wind-aided, just barely categorized as wind-aided. Andrew Armstrong did 22, as I mentioned, 4.51. Landon Jackson, here's another comparison, did 19.8 and ran a 4.68 at the NFL Combine. Taylor Green's number was actually down. He had 22.1 last year and was down to 21.6. Again, still fast, but it doesn't necessarily. Here's another one. Isaac Tesla did not hit 22 miles an hour last year and ran a 4.43 at the NFL Combine. You know, so like he didn't run top speed, peak speed as fast as Andrew Armstrong, but in the 40-yard dash he was faster. So it doesn't always just like translate over. I also want to say this because I hear people say stuff all the time like how a 40-yard dash translates to a 100-meter dash and saying like whether or not it's legitimate and all this stuff. One thing I never hear anybody say, when you're running a 40, you get in your stance, you raise your arm up, and then you fire off, and the guy reacts with the clock. In a 100-meter dash, the guy has the pistol, and when he fires the pistol, then you go. Like one is reactionary, like where you're reacting to the start time, the clock starting, and the other one, the clock starts when you start. It's a big difference. You know, getting off your blocks is a huge deal. So I always thought that was interesting because nobody talks about that. And I see people comparing 100-meter dash to 40-yard dash all the time and seeing if it translates, see if it's accurate and stuff. But they're two totally different ways to measure those speeds, just like there are with this. Isaac Tesla also, I'll say this, like some of the numbers from Arkansas testing, especially in the vertical last year versus what they were in the combine and pro day, like a difference going the wrong direction. Like Tyrone Broden jumped higher at Arkansas Pro Day and was like 3 or 4 inches shorter. See, here it is. Broden also, yeah, this is also interesting. So Broden only had a 10.5 broad jump at Arkansas summer testing, and then went and did an 11.4 broad jump at Arkansas Pro Day. I mean, that's almost a foot farther. Landon Jackson did 10.2 at summer during Arkansas testing, and then did a 10.9 at Pro Day. Isaac Tesla, 10.2, and did a 10.9 broad jump. And speaking of Tesla, again, he did 36.9 inches during summer testing, and then went and did 39.5 at the combine. Didn't have 22-mile-an-hour speed, and still ran a 4.43 at the combine. I think that's interesting. Anyway, you can read all of this at HawgSports. I've got numbers for, pretty much all the top performers. If you want to check out any of those, go. I'll read off to you some of the guys that did 22 miles an hour plus. Keyshawn Davila, the junior college cornerback. Miguel Mitchell, transferred from Florida last year. Miguel had some really nice numbers, 22.3 miles per hour. Before I get to it, guess who the fastest guy on the team is? I bet you don't guess it. Just like you might not have guessed Danico Slaughter last year. I'll tell you a good speed, Phillip Lee at 20.9. It's a good speed. Stephen Dix at 20.8. Bradley Shaw, Xavier Sori, Tavian Wallace all ran good times. I say good times, good mile per hour. Kind of hard to get away from that discussion. So I mentioned Mike Washington at 22.3. You ready for the fastest guy on the team? C.J. Brown. C.J. Brown, Bentonville's own C.J. Brown ran at 22.4. Only had 5 guys over 22 miles an hour last year, had 8. So a little bit slower team this year, I guess. Anyway, read all of that stuff at HawgSports, HawgSports.com. $1 right now for your first month. I've also got the comparison story where I, do all of that more in depth that I just talked about. And I've got a link to last year's numbers as well. I think I'm the only person. I know, like our users, our readers, our subscribers are generally diehard Razorback fans who want to know this kind of information. Like other people in the media always kind of joke with me, like, Trey, why are you asking about, how much weight this guy gained, in the off season, or what somebody's bench press went up to? Like they all kind of laugh at me about that. I'm like, this is what my people want to know. They want the in-depth information. So if you want more in-depth information, go to HawgSports. Check it out for yourself. All right. We're going to go to Danny West here in just a second. Danny is having some internet issues because he doesn't live where they have Ozarks Go, which is a problem for a lot of people. How many people in our online dynasty don't have Ozarks Go and get desyncs and issues all the time? And Danny West is hating his internet service because he doesn't live in an area with Ozarks Go. Isn't that right, Danny? How you doing, Danny? Look at him. Frozen. Froze up. We're going to wait for him to get it figured out. He's going to have to unplug his router and replug his router. He's going to have to do all that stuff. I've never done that. I've never unplugged my router. I've had Ozarks Go for 4 years. I don't have a current deal with Ozarks Go, by the way. Like our advertising deal with them, didn't continue on to the summer. I'm just telling you. I will never have another internet service provider sponsor the show. Whether Ozarks Go wants to continue with us or not, I'll never have another one. I can tell you that right now. Because I just stick with people I believe in. And this is streaming in 1080p live right now for you from Ozarks Go. Let's see if we got him. He looks frozen to me. Danny. He's froze. He's froze. All right. Let's see where we want to go next. So Danny's got an article on potential flip candidates and stuff. We'll talk to him about that in just a little bit. But I did want to see if we've got any Titan Hog on our message board. I hate this board, and then I love it, and then I hate it again. It's the price of being a Razorback fan. You know that, Titan. All right, let's see if we've got any questions. If you got any questions, get them on in the chat right here. I posted this a little late on the board, so we'll see if we got anything. All right, Gateway Hog, who has been with us for 154 months. Ooh, Gateway, you're almost at 1,000 posts. You're at 999. You got to make a special post for 1,000. Gateway Hog says, Trey, if I understood correctly, last week you indicated that we're still seeing the scheduling impacts from when Jeff Long was AD. When will we be out of Long's scheduling cycle? Is there any indication that may show Hunter Yurachek is doing a better job of scheduling for the future? Thank you. I'm not sure how much longer. I would assume it's about over, but like if you look at future schedules and stuff, there are games scheduled out till 2032. So, I mean, that's 7 years from now. So I would assume by now we would be getting out of any Jeff Long scheduling impact. And the main thing I mean when I talk about that is the Texas A&M series above anything else. That has been the biggest negative. Hogwild 97, who's been with us 76 months, only 91 posts. Some guys post a lot, some guys don't post much. 999 actually isn't that many for 154 months. But Hogwild 97 with his 91st post in 76 months says, which isn't a lot, how does Quincy Rhodes look compared to Landon Jackson, who starts at right guard? So Quincy's not Landon, but he is similar size-wise. He's, probably an inch shorter at 6'6". He was 297 last year. I think he's in the 279-ish range right now. He's got a lot of potential, Quincy does. He's their best defensive end. I would be surprised if he's not the best defensive end when it's all said and done. But they need him to be an NFL end. Like other teams in the SEC have NFL defensive ends. They need Quincy to be that. He was ranked as a guy that has NFL potential as a 4-star recruit. He's also an in-state guy. It would be nice to have more in-state guys living up to that 4-star billing. Hopefully Quincy does that. They need him to be a Landon Jackson type. Landon Jackson wasn't Landon Jackson until he was Landon Jackson. Landon Jackson. Darren McFadden wasn't Darren McFadden until he was Darren McFadden. Or DMAC, or Run DMC. Who starts at right guard? Asked Hogwild 97. That's the most competitive group on the offensive line. If you listen to how Sam Pittman talks, he'll tell you stuff, without you even prompting it sometimes. Brett Bielema used to kind of be like that too, but he would do it to start crap. Pittman, the way he talks about Marion Harris, he's the most valuable offensive lineman on the team because he can play all 4 positions. Is Fernando Carmona not capable of playing all 4 positions? He played tackle last year. He played guard this year. To me, he's kind of getting us ready for the idea that Marion is not going to be the starting right tackle. I believe it's going to be Shaq McCroy. I just believe he has too much talent, too much ability not to be. So I think it's going to be Shaq McCroy at right tackle. And then I think Marion Harris is going to compete at right guard with Keyshawn Blackstock, compete at right guard with Kobe Branham. Kobe Branham, who should be back fully now from the torn pectoral he had that set him back, obviously. But I think you're going to have that competition at right guard. 3 guys. And I've said this before. When we're talking about the offensive line, you brought in a guy from Georgia Tech who was the #1 ranked pass protection tackle offensive lineman in Power 5 last year, and Corey Robinson. They brought him in to replace Fernando Carmona at left tackle because I think he's a better left tackle than Carmona is, which allows Carmona to move inside at guard. They're bringing Caden Kittler in, who played center last season, the first guy since Stromberg to play center 2 years in a row. I mean, he's the first guy to do that. Everybody else is like first year at center. You've got 3 guys who started games last year competing for one spot at right guard. Like you're going to have 2 guys likely who started last year who aren't going to start this year. And then you got Shaq McCroy at right tackle, who is a mammoth, a mountain of a man. All right, let's see if we've got Danny. We might have him audio only. Danny, you with us?
Hey, buddy.
Hey, we had to go audio only. Don't you hate that you don't have Ozarks Go?
Listen, man, I was sitting up here. It took me 30 minutes to set up all this video crap.
Yeah.
And I look out the window. I said, man, I hope those guys down the street don't mess me up. I'm sitting here 5 minutes watching you talk, bringing me on. And sure enough, I think these idiots down the street got me.
Oh, yeah, somebody like
a little construction digging going on. Yeah, hopefully it's Ozarks Go being put in, hopefully.
That would be good. That would be good. Hey, Danny, I want to talk to you a little bit about, this football team. I know you've been thinking about it. You've been writing some talking season articles. I think we both found different aspects.
Got them fired up, Trey.
Yeah, I hear you. I think you should be.
Why would you not fired up the other day?
Do what?
Yeah, I got Missouri fired up the other day. All their fans, they did not appreciate me pointing out that Sam Pittman, here's a little stat for you to start the week. Sam Pittman has more ranked victories in the SEC than Eli Drinkwitz. People did not like hearing that in Missouri.
Well,
hey, it's a show me state. I'm going to show you.
That's right. Well, I use Missouri a lot to compare like the difficulties of Arkansas' schedule and how Sam Pittman's had to play more ranked teams than any other SEC program. And I pointed to a lot of stuff about, not just the inability of whatever they do to not let them open up with home games in conference play, but like the number of back-to-back road games that they've had and never having 3 road games. Did you know, Danny, I don't know if you had this in your article, but we both wrote stories about the schedule coming up and how the schedule has been in the past to Arkansas. And I don't know if we had some of the same points, but did you know that Texas A&M
probably
plays 3 straight home games, and their first road game in the conference is Arkansas's first home game in the conference? That's the 4th game. Yeah.
That's tough, man. That's tough. Hey, I was looking at Texas too, though. Texas doesn't play a home conference game until November 1st. I mean, we could talk about Texas. You would think they would probably get some of the favors that we've seen, Alabama and some of the get through the years. I looked it up, doing some of those studies the other day, Trey. I found out that Alabama at one point, now this is 30 years ago, they opened with Vanderbilt for 10 years in a row. And, it was a collection of teams like you can go back and look in the article, but I want to say it was Arkansas, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky that they opened with for 21 straight years in SEC play. Those are the teams that Alabama had to start with for 21 years.
Yeah.
That wasn't today's Kentucky winning 10 games or Ole Miss or Arkansas even. Arkansas was the best of the bunch back in that group.
I don't think it's coincidental that Greg Sankey, ever since he started Arkansas football, has just been
yeah.
Are we going after Greg Sankey?
Yeah, it's tough, man. But I mean, some of it though, Trey, we make a lot of excuses about the schedule.
Oh, Arkansas does
half of it is self-inflicted. Yeah.
Without a doubt. I
hope people realize that.
You would have liked to have seen, though, like the first time that Arkansas doesn't screw itself by playing this game in Arlington against Texas A&M, that it would work out well. But no, we're going to send Arkansas on the road still.
No, let's go to Memphis when they've won 21 games in 2 years.
That's Arkansas's fault.
Let's go across the river.
Let's play Arkansas State.
That's Arkansas's fault.
Arkansas State wouldn't have played Arkansas in Fayetteville. I mean, I guess that's part, due to, the contract with War Memorial Stadium to play a game there. But sure. I hate playing your opener away from home, but I would also think it would be better for Arkansas to play Arkansas State in Fayetteville. And Sam Pittman also said, like, he'd like to keep playing Arkansas State, but he wants to play him in Fayetteville,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm
with him on that too.
There's 3 ways to open your season: in your own backyard, playing either a big time program or a program you should easily beat; playing a big time program on the road; or playing a big time program in a neutral site, not one that you have reoccurring every single year like Texas A&M. You should never start your season in your home away from home, or playing at some non-Power 5 team.
I agree. But that's where it's at, man. And I would like to think only Arkansas would do that. Another couple of teams out there still doing, throwback type stuff that you see in the 70s and 80s, back when people like Alabama and Auburn, everybody remembers they would play in Birmingham, and of course the Egg Bowl being in Jackson for so many. That sounds cool, but that sounds really dated, really dated at a time when, recruiting opportunities are so few
Danny,
and so important.
You're from Rising. I don't know when you made your first game in Fayetteville. I know I wasn't until high school. I think that's right. I think I
want to say 93 or 94.
Yeah. I might have been in ninth grade. I don't think I was, but all my real memories as a child are going to games in War Memorial Stadium. And so I've always kind of died on that hill that they should play games there, but I don't feel that way anymore. And I'm not going to say that just to say it. And I hate that for people that can't get up to Fayetteville or it's too expensive. I hate that. But War Memorial Stadium.
Why is it too expensive too?
Yeah, exactly. It's expensive.
That's another conversation.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah. But now that First Bank has been renovated in Vanderbilt, I haven't been to it yet, but I would assume it's a lot nicer than War Memorial, which hasn't been renovated in a while. I would assume that War Memorial is the worst stadium in the SEC that teams play a home game at.
Boy, I had an opportunity for a Missouri joke right there. I'm gonna let it go.
It's
they do paint
Missouri
rocks.
Stadium's not nice. It's not.
No,
but it's better than War Memorial. The tailgating,
absolutely, it is.
You'd be hard pressed to find better tailgating. You would, but as far as inside, it's like a house.
I don't know, man. Even the tailgating, it seems like the last few years, you come back and you see all these videos about another fight, being idiots out on golf. It's like, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, there are now a lot of that.
I'm getting too old for all that.
A lot of that is, some of the struggles that War Memorial has is just having that one large event and not having more. I got into a discussion with a police officer. They block off the area to where you have to go through media parking. They move the barrier code, the barrier. They move that, and you go through and you go to media parking. There's only one way to get there. And he was telling me that I couldn't go through there. And I was like, sir, I've been coming through this, and you move the barricade and I go through, and I've been doing that for 20 years. It's the only way to get to media parking. And he was like, no. And I sat there for a while. I was like, look, I don't know what to tell you, but I got to go here. I did that one time with a parking attendant. I had a press conference to be at, and they had a volleyball game, and he's like, you can't come through here. And I go, but I am. And I just kind of did that face, but I'm doing it.
I remember that.
I just kind of squeezed on
it's
through.
Happening.
But I also know, I've got to be there for a press conference. You can't have me park on the other side of campus to go right here where I go every day. But anyway, that is a result of not having a lot of events there. The band a couple years ago not being given any water throughout the entire game is a result of not having the year that they completely filled up our parking area because they let everybody just park haphazardly all over the place. There wasn't enough parking for anybody. Is a result of not having enough events there. The game clock going out all the time, the play clock going out, or having connectivity issues, or you can guarantee internet's going to stop working at some point. All of those are results of not having games there. It's not that they don't want to do a good job or they're not trying. It's just the level of inexperience that you have from just having one event every other year or every year.
Yeah.
And I hate
it makes it tough, but
I hate bagging on Central Arkansas because I'm from there.
What you mean?
But it's the state Fayetteville Stadium is so much nicer, and I don't know. I have my complaints with Fayetteville too. I think it was idiotic to build. That's another problem I have with the former AD, putting all the nicest suites in the place where you're just blasted by the sun the entire game. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I talked about that on the last one, but I don't want to get into that more. But anything else to add to that, Danny, while we're bitching?
I don't know. Man, I don't know how we got off on this. I got on here to talk about a couple.
Yeah. Well, Arkansas is at 26 commitments for the class of 26, right? 26. And they're at 2 commitments for the class of 2027. Where are things going? You had an article on potential flip.
Could see that 26 total continue. We'll hit on a couple of guys real quick. Jordan Avinger, the running back / linebacker. Arkansas wants him as a running back. Kid's out of Orangeburg, South Carolina. Supposed to be committing this week on Friday. He's 6'3", 225. He's the kid that I told people kind of reminds you of Rocket a little bit, just on the hoof. Big yoked up joker, he's huge. So be on the lookout for him this Friday. We'll see which way he goes. Again, East Carolina's recruiting him as a linebacker. Arkansas is the only one that wants him at running back. So we'll see there. And then, of course, I threw out a few names on the on HawgSports this morning, a few guys, potential flips. Of course, you talked about it. Got up to 26 commitments in a hurry. Doesn't leave a whole lot left, but they did miss on a few guys that came in June for official visits. Going to be worth keeping an eye on this fall, so we'll see what happens there. But check that out on the site, talking about potential flips.
Danny, have you watched much of Mike Washington? I know this is not specifically recruiting, but he's a new addition. And
man,
our buddy Keith.
When months ago, I did.
I need to get Keith back on the show. We haven't had him in a while. But he says most of the offseason talk has been about Mike Washington. Is he going to get more carries than Russell? Washington didn't even lead New Mexico State in yardage and only rushed 4.2 yards per carry. He's getting a ton of praise this offseason. Makes a good point. Yeah,
hey, and we've seen that a few times, where a transfer running back comes in. Remember David, what's my guy's name? Williams, right?
South Carolina.
From South Carolina came in that year.
Yeah,
came in, and he wasn't 1,000-yard, but he kind of took it over, and
he got drafted.
And people probably didn't expect it. Yeah, he did. But it wasn't. What point is, wasn't a huge transfer type name. Came in, won the job, took it over. Yeah. Probably wasn't a huge surprise looking back. Brett fell in love with him, of course. So it wouldn't surprise me, but they're rolling with Braylon until he's. Until he proves otherwise. But
I think we're going to see a lot of Mike, though. I think we're going to see an even number of carries distributed, whether it's injuries being the reason for that. But Mike only had 9 catches for 74 yards and a touchdown last year, but he can really catch the ball. I was impressed with him coming out of the backfield. But he had 157 carries for 725 yards. He actually averaged 4.6 yards per carry. Keith, and had 8 touchdowns last year. So, but I don't know. When I saw him the first time, Danny, I was like, okay, bigger, faster, stronger than I thought he was, better receiver than I thought he was. I liked what I saw out of him. So I'm not surprised that they're super high on him.
Yeah, that's good.
Muddy 6.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah, go ahead.
What was that?
Go ahead. I was going to read the next one.
I was going to get you out of here by telling you I'm all for getting Keith back on here. He sent me the funniest text the other day that, of course, I cannot share on here, but big fan of that guy. I think it's time. It's football season, talking season. Who else would you have on?
That's right. Danny, you want to hang on for a little bit, or you want to get out of here?
It's whatever. It's whatever.
Well, Muddy 6 says he keeps hearing everybody talk about the speed and the skill guys, but it means nothing. You can't get off the line of scrimmage or catch it when it's called. Do you see anything in the spring or hear anything in the summer workouts would ease some concerns? What do you've seen a lot of these guys on video and stuff, like when transfer portal stuff was happening. What do you think about these receivers?
Receivers is one I was feeling okay about it in the spring, going into the spring, and then they come out. 7 or 8 transfers going into spring, and come out and the first thing you hear is, well, we're going to have to get some more transfer receivers. I'm going, what the heck?
Yeah. Andy
what
Jean
happened
and
in the spring? So
Brown. Yeah.
So that made me worry. I'm not going to lie to you, because I thought they had found several solutions. I thought maybe 3 or 4 of those guys, but it sounds like they're really just thrilled. And I'm not saying they're not thrilled about Omega Blake, and sounds like he came on toward the end of spring. Maybe he's a gamer type that can just, go out on Saturdays and do what he did the last 2 stops. But sounds to me like the 2 flankers are what they're most excited about, and it's still kind of a wait and see on who the deep shot guy might be. And that's worrisome to me when you go out and you spend quite a bit. I would imagine it costs quite a bit to get a couple of those guys for sure. So I'm a little bit concerned about it. And in the first couple of days of fall camp, I would like to get on HawgSports and see you talking about maybe it's not a big deal.
Yeah, hope so. Here's another one from Muddy directed directly at you. Do we have any dudes, D-U-D-E-S, all caps, in the next 2 in-state classes, 27 and 28?
Ooh, 27, 28 is way too far out for me, bud. Bradley Sturdivant at Sheridan, I'll go with him for 2027. Obviously, he's already committed. I think he's a dude. He's got a little – well, he's from Sheridan, He's got a little yellow jacket in him. I wouldn't fight anybody from Sheridan.
I think he's the first. I think he's the first guy from Sheridan as a scholarship player, at least in my lifetime.
Is that right?
I don't remember.
I didn't realize
there have been guys that have come up here. Cliff Krause played football for a little bit. I think he was a walk-on though. He might have been on scholarship. I don't remember. I think he actually walked. He ended up playing baseball regardless. And I think I only spent one year with the football team, but that would have been he would have been class of 98. So that was a long time ago, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that, but
shout out Cliff
I know that. Yeah, there you go. Shout out Sheridan. But yeah, Bradley would be up there. He's obviously the first name that comes to mind, just being an in-state commit. But I do know that Arkansas really thinks this kid's good. I don't think this is one of your typical, you know what I mean by this, Trey, momentum type.
He's put together
where you get it early. Yeah, he's a really good-looking kid and seems to have a little dog about him. So still an early question for me. That would be a good guess. Hank Hendricks right there at Fayetteville, of course, transferred in back, going to get a lot of offers, a lot of attention, and we'll see where it goes from there. But that's a good question. I need to jump into 27s. It's time for that.
Yeah, it's starting to get time. I mean, class looks full, I think. I mean, who knows where they go with scholarship numbers and whatnot.
Sure.
All right,
just
Danny.
A few more, I think.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Yeah. Sorry about the internet, folks. Get Ozarks go.
All right. Talk to you later, Danny.
See you.
All right, everybody. That's Danny West. You can follow him at HawgSports and read all of his VIP content, and follow him on X at Danny West 24/7. The latest article that he has, Arkansas's potential flip targets. He mentioned one guy there, but he's got a couple of mentions there in the story as well. Danny does a great job for us. All right. What else has happened? Arkansas picked up a junior college commitment from a pitcher, Jacob Emoto. This was just a couple of days ago, July 27th, so yesterday, I guess. All right, let's see if we got any more questions. We have 46 comments rolling right now. We'll check those out before we get out of here. Okay. Hogboy 1987, 116 months with us, 3,940 posts. Besides Talon, who's the key player that will determine whether the Hogs sink or swim this season? Obviously, it starts with Talon. Who's the key player? Who would be the other guy? That's a hard one, man. That is one of the more difficult questions. Like, I hate to say, like, everybody, because that's what, players seem to say every time you ask a question. Who's standing out? Everybody's standing out. Besides Talon, Maybe one of the wide receivers. Maybe Quincy Rhodes. I mean, like, if you can have a strong defensive line. How about this? How about Larry Worth? Like, if Larry Worth stands out and they have a really standout safety and he lives up to all his athletic ability, because Larry Worth is every bit of 6'4", 225, can jump out of the gym. It's great measurables all the way around. If he can live up to that, and he had moments last year, but he also had other moments that weren't as good. But if he can live up to that, and Arkansas has a stud on the back end in the secondary, I feel like that would go a long way. I feel like that would go a long way to helping that defense. At the same time, having a stud at defensive end would be really big for the defense. Like, if Quincy Rhodes could really get after quarterbacks and harass people. It's a good question. Maybe I would have a better answer for you after watching a week or two of camp, fall camp. Cold Tap, 64 months with us, 1,055 post. What's the status of the transfer portal pick wide receiver up from SMU? So you got it a little bit wrong. FSU guys, Andy Jean. Jalen Brown is from. Oh, no. Do you have it? You have it right. Yeah, you have it right. My bad. Where's Andy Jean from? Is he from Florida? Is that right? I had it wrong. You had it right, Coltap. Andy Jean was at Florida and then at Pitt. Okay. Andy Jean was at Florida and at Pitt. Jalen Brown was at Florida State. You have it right. Who was facing felony charge of possession. He keeps showing up as a scholarship player. But, Sam Pittman talked about him at media days. I don't have any answer on what that is. One person said the charges were dropped. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have an official word on that. But I don't think that Sam Pittman would have just brought his name up without being asked specifically about him if they didn't feel like things were going to be resolved in a positive way there. Jalen Brown is a really highly regarded recruit. He was a number 71 ranked prospect in the country coming out of high school in the class of 2023. Went to LSU. He's from Miami. Ended up at Florida State. Had a really good spring, I'm told, and then had that incident. NEA Hog 12 says, 57 months, 815 posts. What defensive player could outperform expectations enough to really boost the ceiling of that side of the ball? I feel like we talked about that, so maybe I'll think of another player aside from Larry Worth. How about one of those cornerbacks, like Kenai Walker? I think Selman Bridges could be a pretty good player for him. So we're going to go with the other side, whoever that is, Kenai Walker, Jordan Young, Keyshawn Davila, Julian Neal, one of those guys. If one of those guys really becomes a good player, because you really don't sub out defensive backs that much. You really need, obviously you need another guy to play the nickel, but I would say that. I would say cornerback. Aside from Larry Worth, aside from Xavier Sori, aside from Cam Ball and Quincy Rhodes, I'm going to give you another name. And everybody knows who's listening to the show knows who I'm going to say. If Danny Saili can be a really good player for them, and I feel like he's got a shot. I literally feel like he has got a shot to be a pretty good player. I liked what I saw out of him in the spring. The expectations for him, I don't think, are exceedingly high. On EA Sports College Football, he's not even a starting defensive lineman. But I think Danny Saili, if he can be what I think he could be, and that's just, a very solid, ready-to-go defensive lineman, like Eric Gregory, maybe not even an NFL guy, but just solid guy you can count on. That would boost a lot of things. That make me feel better about the defensive line. To me, that's the weakest area, so I should probably focus on defensive line when I'm asked those questions. Like, where do they need the boost? Let's check out some comments, see if we got anything that jumps out here. My thoughts on Antonio Jordan. I've been asked about this from Aaron Winborn. I've been asked about Antonio Jordan quite a bit lately. If he's a guy that can command an impact, and I would say I think that's a chance, but who as a freshman wide receiver has really stood out? Like had a great career. Marcus Monk. Let's see Marcus Monk's stats. You have to see college football because you might get basketball stats because he played basketball too. So in 2004, as a freshman, he had 37 catches for 569 yards and 6 touchdowns. That was his freshman impact. Jarius Wright, you say? That might be difficult. Can I get to his college stats? NCAA football. All right, so as a freshman, Jarius Wright, this is a guy that had 66 catches for 1,117 yards and 12 touchdowns as a senior. What do you think he had as a freshman? 19 catches for 348 yards. The best NFL wide receiver to come out of Arkansas in a long time. I mean, Jarius Wright was productive in the NFL, played 8 seasons in the NFL. Had a pretty solid career. I mean, he didn't do anything. He didn't have outrageous NFL numbers, but he had 2,700 career receiving yards, 11 career touchdowns. Joe Adams. It's another one. What did Joe Adams do as a freshman? 31 catches, 377 yards. These are good numbers. These aren't like star numbers. So like anybody thinking that he's going to have like 1,000 receiving yards, that's almost certainly not going to happen. I'll tell you another one you didn't think about. You didn't think about Mikael McKay, did you? Did you? Let's see what he had. Mikael McKay was here for a year under John L. Smith. 21 catches, 317 yards. So freshman receivers, yes, can play without a doubt. They can help you and produce numbers. But if you're expecting like outrageous numbers, probably not going to get that. GB says, what should our record be going into the first bye week to keep fans feeling confident going into the season? So the first bye week is before Tennessee, right? Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, Memphis. I mean, you got to win those. Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, Memphis, and then you have Ole Miss and Notre Dame. I mean, if you're worse than 3-2, then people are going to be not happy. Notre Dame loss, Ole Miss loss. I'm not saying those are acceptable. I'm just saying, you know, it wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas lost those games, obviously, or they're probably going to be underdogs. I mean, almost certainly at Ole Miss and Notre Dame at home, they're going to be underdogs. Not even almost certainly. It's just like that's what's going to happen. So if they lose any of these games that they're going to be favored in, Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, and Memphis, even though Memphis won 11 games last year, then, yeah, that's not going to keep fans feeling confident. Fans, I think, would check out pretty quick with a loss in one of those games. Trying to think of something that we haven't gone over. Justin Williams says fastest guy on the team is Cam Shanks. That could be true, I guess. He's quick. Let me see what Cam Shanks ran last year, or excuse me, this summer. I'm all over the place on talking. Where's my Cam Shanks? Let's see. Arkansas summer testing numbers. I would bet that I don't think he was 22 miles an hour, though. I think he was under. But again, Isaac TeSlaa ran under 22 miles an hour last year and ran a 4.43, which is pretty smoking for a guy that's 6'4", 215 pounds. Cam Shanks ran 21.8, so he was just under. Again, to put it in perspective, Isaac TeSlaa was just short of that number last year and ran a 4.43. Andrew Armstrong ran a 22.0 and ran a 4.51. So I don't know if he's the fastest guy on the team based on that peak speed, but that doesn't mean he couldn't run a sub 4.5. Yeah. Justin Williams says C.J. Brown would never have guessed that. Wouldn't have guessed Danico Slaughter last year either. And Danico, he ran a 4.37, I believe, at the combine or at the at Arkansas Pro Day. Raylan Sharp, 21.6. Danny West on that Temu internet. How many scholarship players does Arkansas have now? Arkansas, I have them at 84 scholarship players. Bear fan. Now, I'll ask Sam Pittman on Thursday if any walk-on has been put on scholarship. Sometimes they retroactively apply that. That's possible also. What would be rank if we start 4-0? If they start 4-0, you guys remember when they played Texas and won at Texas and they just vaulted into the top 10? If they beat Notre Dame at home, I would imagine they vault into the top 25, especially coming out off of a win at Memphis. So if they, that's 4-0, sorry. Notre Dame's fifth game. They will probably be ranked. If they beat Ole Miss at Ole Miss and they beat Memphis at Memphis, they will probably creep into the top 25 at that point, if that happens. And you'd have a top 25 game almost certainly against Notre Dame. Sorry, Notre Dame is the fifth game. If they beat Notre Dame and they start if Arkansas were to start 5-0, they would be ranked no worse than 12th nationally. That's what I would say. If they come out of that stretch 5-0. Brady says they're going to be 5-0 going into Tennessee. Or excuse me, Justin Williams says that to Brady. Stephen Cox says biggest surprise on offense and defense. I think Rohan Jones, and with a nod to Mike Washington, and Danny Saili and Keyshawn Davila. Ash says, what's the deal with Courtney Crutchfield? He seems so far behind receivers when people speak. I mean, he just wasn't. I mean, I had 6 or 7 wide receivers ahead of him, just based on what I saw in the spring. I mean, I don't know that's just how I saw it. I think he's got a ton of ability, but I don't think I have any Courtney Crutchfield numbers from summer testing. No, don't have any of the numbers that he put up, but I know he can jump. I mean, he did like 6'6" in the high jump without ever training for it with bad form. Okay. Cody St. John says, other than not getting too interested, I have zero clue who they have talent-wise, while the people we play are 5- and 4-star. Yeah, they have some 5- and 4-star too. Xavier Sori was a 5-star recruit. Jaheim Singletary was a 5-star recruit. He hasn't really played like that. And they have other players that were 4-star recruits on this team. You don't have to just have a bunch of it's great to have that. Yes, it is. But you can also win with a veteran roster. I think there's 2 ways to build a program, through the transfer portal. There's 30 seniors on this team or something. That used to be unheard of. There's just a lot of old guys out there who've played a lot of football, who've been in a weight room for a long time, been training for a long time. It's their last go round. You'd like to think that they have, all that experience built up, versus maybe going against a 5-star sophomore, redshirt freshman, or, 5-stars usually aren't redshirt freshmen, but I guess it depends on where they go to school. Cody St. John says we'll probably have 3 losses going into Tennessee. I don't know if I will say probably, but it's It's absolutely possible. I mean, they could absolutely lose to Memphis, or if they don't show up against Arkansas State, they could absolutely lose. I mean, probably is a little strong, but definitely possible. Justin Williams says, I think this team can be very good if Talon takes that next step. Talon's going to take a step forward. I mean, he is. Better offensive line. How much better, I don't know. I think they'll be above average. I know that doesn't like make everybody, all giddy, but I'm talking above average as an SEC offensive line. Last year, they were below average. They were better than they were the year before, but they were still a below average offensive line by the end of the season. Yep. Talked about boneheaded mistakes. Talon does make some mistakes, not taking care of the football. There are things that happen, like as far as interceptions and stuff, that aren't his fault, but like fumbling the ball, taking huge sacks, like 10, 12-yard sacks on third down and field goal range, stuff like that. Can't happen. Put Shaq next to Cam, who's going to block them two both. Well, put Shaq on the defensive line. They've got to have him on offensive line. Got to. But you've also got Ian Gerford, who is, last check, 380 pounds. I wonder if they've updated that yet, the weights. Ian Gerford. I think he was listed at 389 in the spring. He's 95. That's 387. I wonder if this has been updated. Let me check Braylon Russell. What number is Braylon? 0. 238. I think that's what he was listed at in the spring, so maybe this hadn't been updated. No, I don't think it has. Yeah, Charlie Collins still same. Kalen, Xavier. Yeah. Anyway, he was listed at 387. So they've got a big dude. Landon Montgomery says, were we too quick moving on from Brett? 2015 had a lot of pros, and haven't been good since. I mean, if you think about it, in 2017, Brett there were a lot of things on the field. Losing your starting quarterback is a pretty big blow, and they lost Austin Allen. The way 2016 ended left a really bad taste. Like, if Brett wins those two games against Missouri, where they blew a big lead, and then against Virginia Tech, where they, again, blew a big lead, if they win those two games like they should have done, then people would have been, easier on him in the next season. I can also throw it to 2015. We went over the 2015 roster a couple of shows ago. There are a lot of NFL guys on that team. They only won 8 games. They lost that game against Mississippi State when they settled for that field goal. They lost to, Toledo. They lost to Toledo that year. Like, that should have been a 10-win team. If that was a 10-win team, but I say it should have been, like, they also got extremely lucky, miraculous win over Ole Miss with the Hunter Henry heave. Like, that happened also. But let's say, like, if that had been a 9-win team, let's make it fair on, like, how that goes. If that had been a 9-win team, the next year they could have won 9 games. They definitely, Josh Pate always says shoulda versus coulda, you shouldn't have won. You could have won, and you didn't. They could have won those 2 games where they blew those big leads. And if they'd done that, you're talking about back-to-back 9-win seasons. And, you have a crappy season. It sucks, but, like, you can fall back on that. Pittman kind of was able to fall back on his 9-win season from 2021 when they tanked in 2023. He had that to fall back on. I wouldn't say he has anything to fall back on at this point, but he did have that. Justin Williams says Deion Sanders is probably going to be retiring. I heard that. I know he's had some foot issues. I think Deion Sanders, that whole storyline, everything's been fun for college football. I hope that's not true, but the fact that I don't know when that press conference is or if it's happened, but he was going to meet with the media, and his medical team is supposed to be there. So that doesn't sound good. Brian Umberson says they're still trying to catch up from 1.5 years of resisting NIL. I mean, you're not terribly wrong. 2021, speaking of that season, that's when you should have capitalized on NIL. And I think you would have had a lot more support instead of trying to capitalize on NIL coming off of a 4-win season. All right. Sleeping on AJ Green, that's possible. AJ had a 400-yard rushing season or something one year, when he was at Arkansas. So, all right, everybody. There's a few more questions, but we've gone over an hour now. I want to thank everybody. Again, if you're interested in advertising with HawgSports, reach out to my buddy Ty. You can reach him at TYEESPNArkansas@gmail.com. Check out our rates. We've got a couple spots left, and we're actually working with people on those spots. So, but I think we are anyway. May have one more. Anyway, we're going to move away from the YouTube ads in between shows and stuff, and just do more focused companies that we really believe in. So hopefully you're somebody that we believe in reaching out. All right, everybody. That's the show today. Appreciate you for joining me. Thanks to Danny West for hopping on, even though his internet sucks because he doesn't have Ozarks Go. All right, everybody. This has been Trey Beatty with HawgSports.com. And need to bring up media assets and the show. We'll catch you next time.